But now we set the stage, DRS, for what we expect to be a gauntlet of a second-round set in the NBA postseason. Now, the Thunder hold home floor advantage, but are an ever-so-slight favorite in the outright price. OKC minus 120. But actually, it's the Thunder getting a game and a half in the series spread, a hefty amount of juice you have to pay at minus 194. To get to 6 games is plus 195. To go the distance, second best number at plus 220. How close and tightly contested do you expect this series between OKC and Dallas to be?
I expect it to be a really good one. You take a look at that series betting price, let you know right off the bat here. It's a de facto pick, a minus 121 side here for the Thunder. Home court advantage going up against the Mavericks at minus 102. Here's also what we have to put into play, Ben, in this series, similar to what we see in some other series, particularly like the Minnesota Timberwolves. You're just not trusting them. Don't you remember going back to open up here the playoffs? A plus 114 price was for the T-Wolves to beat the Suns, even though the T-Wolves had home court advantage. It's almost like, what have you done for me lately? Now, granted, the Minnesota Timberwolves now have beaten the Denver Nuggets in game number 1 in the second round, and now they're starting to get their respect. When are we going to get that for OKC? Because similar to what we saw from out of the Minnesota Timberwolves, which is why I'm bringing up both of these teams, young teams, not necessarily, I should say young teams, but young in their playoff awareness, I should say, where they can win basketball games and you start to trust them. It took a sweep in that first round for Minnesota to wake up and say, okay, maybe they're a good basketball team. And now they beat the Denver Nuggets. Well, you take a look at OKC in round number 1. They were flawless in their round as well, but still not getting a lot of respect. We have to remind ourselves, this isn't OKC as like a 5th or 6th seed taking on the Dallas Mavericks who are the home team. No, OKC is the number 1 seed at home with home court advantage. So before this series even begins, I like the Mavericks. I like to root for them. They're a fun team. Prop bets, a lot of fun to bet with their 2 superstars here. But having said that, I do think there is a lot of disrespect towards Oklahoma City as only a minus 120 price as being the number 1 overall seed and easily dispatching their round 1 opponent here. Let's see what happens in round number 2. But starting off here, I just think it's disrespectful at a minus 120 price to the top overall seed in the West here.
Completely agree. And listen, the Mavericks were not flawless in their opening round series, even against a shorthanded Clippers team. Game number 4, Dallas on its home floor, booked as a 7.5-8-point favorite because LA did not have Kawhi Leonard, down by 30-plus in the opening half, only for the Clippers to hold on at the end to win that 4th game. Sure, it's a 1-game sample size. All to say, Dallas had its issues in the opening round series against a shorthanded Clippers team outside of game number 1, where OKC handled New Orleans in the second half, but it was tight back and forth. Oklahoma City, by far the better team, winning by 30-plus in game 2, 20-plus in game number 3, and really has been sitting on the sidelines now for over a week, rested and ready. And Donnie, the conversation around Oklahoma City was, could OKC handle these tests? All right, first true playoff game in that opening game against New Orleans with this young core. They were tested. They survived a late game tying or even winning 3-point attempt from C.J. McCollum. All right, look good in game 2, but could they go on the road? Yeah, they answered the test against the New Orleans Pelicans, closing things out quickly and promptly in a 4-game sweep. I think OKC is the right side here in this second round series, having home floor advantage, not just minus 120 outright to win the series. Oklahoma City only a 3.5-point favorite for game number 1 tomorrow night against Dallas. And oh, by the way, 3 of the 4 games for the Thunder against the Pelicans did stay under. No total was as high as 217. I lean the under in game number 1 against the Mavs.
Yeah, 2 teams feeling themselves out. I do understand that as well. But also, we're taking a look at some of the, I don't want to say outside things that could impact this series, but as you talked about in round number 1, where you saw the Mavericks get a victory over the Clippers, well, that would have been an interesting series if 100% Kawhi Leonard was in there. I'm not saying Dallas still wouldn't have won that series, but you would have got a little bit of a difference. Now, you can also argue the same thing. Hey, Donnie, did you see OKC, who they played round number 1, would have been different if Zion played? I understand that. There's always going to be that. But moving forward here, you got a pretty healthy OKC team. The one thing you're still worried about is Luka Doncic. He did have a little bit of knee issues in round number 1. Did it affect him that much with his points, rebounds, and assists? Not really, but if that's something that flares up in the series, that could be a major advantage for Oklahoma City. But I look at the same way a lot of people do. Still, Oklahoma City must have to prove their victories, and maybe round one wasn't good enough. Let's see in game number one. And also, as you pointed out, the spread for game number one, still a little bit disrespectful once again for OKC. I expect them to win game number one on their home court here. And if they do win, it's going to be by a margin of 3.5 points. So I like OKC in the series and game number one here.
Yeah, I would agree. OKC, by the way, covering in their final 3 games in the opening round series against New Orleans. These two teams did face off 4 times in the regular season. OKC winning 3 of 4, including what has now been a 9-game win streak for the Thunder. Their final 5 games of the regular season to earn the number 1 overall seed in the Western Conference. And now the 4 games, of course, to start off the playoffs. That included the regular season finale, where Dallas didn't play anybody. OKC was a 19.5-point favorite against the Mavericks. They won by nearly 50, easily covering that number. 3 of the 4 games in the regular season, not the regular season finale, did go over, maybe influencing that 2-17. Of course, it will be a superstar showdown. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to and expected to score 30 points each and every night. Kyrie Irving did score 30 in game number 6 against the LA Clippers. So we're already into game number 2 of the second round between the T-Wolves and the Nuggets tonight. Round number 2, game number 1 of the other Western Conference semifinals tomorrow night in Oklahoma City between the Thunder and the Mavericks.